Hey, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Glue Wednesday. I'm Sporty King, your host, and I'm on early. Don't think, oh my God, my God. I always come on early, 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes early, so that it gives Facebook a chance to what they call build the audience. Saying, you know what, it's all personal taste. The way I look at it, sometimes you may say, you know what, yeah, let me know when Sporty comes on live, and then if I come on at 1 o'clock, like I said, and you're, oh my God, I need to, I forgot that was going to happen, and I need to close this thing out. So that's why I come on early. Also, what I do is on Wednesdays is my longer interactive session. So I come on early to do my shout out. So as you'll see in a second, once somebody comes on, I'm going to shout them out or say my hellos. So we've got less than 4 minutes for today's message. But if this is your first Glue broadcast, welcome aboard. And Glue Wednesday came about 3 years ago when I was looking, with me being word sensitive, I was looking at the fact that they call the cliche is Wednesday is hump day, because us old school people, we just did weekdays and weekends. So Wednesday was considered the middle of the work week. And so it was hump day. And the truth is, not everybody works Monday to Friday, and never did. But that just was the way we looked at it. So I looked at the fact that Wednesday is the actual middle of a traditional 7-day week, regardless of when your work schedule is. And so I looked at Wednesday as the day that keeps the week beginning and the weekend together. So Wednesday is the glue that pulls it all together. And even when we talk about that, it puts us into my favorite pose, and that is the prayerful pose of faith and hope. And so I therefore decided that glue was GLUE. God's love undoes everything. And so when we look at we look at Glue Wednesday, we want to look at the fact that God's love undoes everything. And we've got less than 2 minutes for today's message. But, as you start to recognize that, you recognize that it doesn't tear things apart, but it puts things that are torn apart back together. That's so it undoes the chaos. It undoes the tear. It's the patience in prayer. Ooh, that rhymed. It undoes the tear. It's the patience in the prayer. So, so that's what Glue Wednesday is all about. We've got less than 3 minutes for today's message as well. Even if you're on the broadcast, I want you to participate and put stuff in the feed, in the thread, some of the questions that are going to be asked, okay? So everybody get ready. So what I do is on Mondays, I have a message called the MMM, the Monday Morning Moment, non-interactive, 1 to 2 minute tape message of inspiration to start your Monday. And then on Friday, I have what's called Gift Friday. And that's 10 to 12 minutes. And what that will actually be is me reading one of my original poems and then talking about how you can use it, because some people don't realize how poetry is usable, even though these days it is a little more common, how it's usable in a lot of our seminars and interactions, communication with people. So I read one of my original poems, and then I actually give you a link to get a free copy, a free download, PDF download of it. That's why I called it Gift Friday, because gift is GIFT. God is for today. And my gift that day is to you of one of my original poems, as well as a way, after you've already listened to, how to use it. That's also not an interactive one, but it is live, and people will put stuff in the feed, but I'll still just be going through the process. And we've got less than a minute for today's message. So then that brings us back to today's message, which is usually a 30 to 45 minute broadcast, and it's my interactive one. So I've got a little bit scripted of what I'm going to say, but a lot depends on what comes on in the feed and how I'll get to share that with everybody. So let's get ready to start that in just a few seconds as we deal with the new message. And then as people come on, I'll do the shout outs. All right, everything is ready. Okay, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, let's get going. All right. Again, welcome to Glue Wednesday. Now, we're in the third of what I call the Burr months. That's September, October, November, and December. So I call them the Burr months. And each week, what I'll do is discuss the question, what will you do to keep it together? Not what have you been doing to keep it together, because COVID and this pandemic has made 2020 a challenging year. But guess what? Every day basically is a challenge. This is just the new challenge. And that's the way I look at it. It's just the new challenge, another storm that we have to go through. And then truthfully, I'm not minimizing it, the severity of it, but guess what? Once we get a handle of it on it, or believe we have a handle, we'll look back and say, oh man, that was tough. See, so we'll talk about it in the past. Right now, we're talking about it in the future. In fact, I always say that we're living in the future right now, because what's going to happen? How is the vaccine going to work? Who's it going to get rolled out to first? What type of side effects will it have? And you can't tell that just because someone feels good after 1 week of getting the vaccine. So there's a lot of different things that we're doing right now, and we're living in the future. And that's really what makes glue even more important. Finding ways to not hump, not have to get over, but to glue, to keep it together. So that's why my question on each of these broadcasts will be, what will you do to keep it together? And that's what I'm going to want you to put in the thread as we move on. So each week I ask that question by focusing on a different letter in one of the Burr months. And so we're in December. So last week we did the D. So we're going to be doing the D, the C, the E, and the M. So this week, we're doing the C. So words like, and the words I've prepared are commandment, creative, and character. Commandment, creative, and character. Okay. But first, one of the things that I always like to do is have a fun literacy fact. So here's a fun literacy fact for you. In fact, I'm going to split the fun aspect and then choose to send you some C words as I contribute what I call my first thing is, I'm putting it in the chat right now. It's the abcmouse.com. It's called the C song. The C song is the ABC mouse. So when you get a chance, because see, we have to bring some laughter into our day and joy. So when you get a chance, go on, click on that link. It's just a 3-minute song, but it's from the abcmouse.com. And maybe that's something you'll turn your kids on to. But also, I want to talk to us about the fact that here's one of those literary facts. The letter C is also what's known as a voiceless consonant. A voiceless consonant. Now, voiceless consonants do not use the vocal cords to produce their hard percussive sounds. Instead, they're slack, allowing air to flow freely from the lungs to the mouth, where the tongue, teeth, and lips engage to modulate the sound. Excuse me. These are the other voiceless consonants. And so if you think about what they're saying, especially look at the last one, as in thing. So that's where I see they're talking about allowing the air to flow freely from the lungs. Ch, F, K, P, S, sh, T, th, as in thing. So those are what are called the voiceless consonants. So now you've got a nice literary fact to get you going. And now we're going to get going and see what the letter C has to do with today's message. And so the first word I want to use is commandment. Commandment. And what I decided to do with the letter commandment is actually bring you some biblical reference, because certainly when you heard the word commandment, you probably thought about the 10 Commandments. We tend to. But those of you who know me, I read a Bible called the Touchpoint Living Bible. And what the Touchpoint Bible does is it gives modern day analogies to scripture and breaking it down into a much smoother English for understanding. Excuse me. So, and then what they have throughout the Bible are called touch points. So they'll take scripture and they'll say, here's the topic that scriptural lesson brings us. And so today, my scriptural lesson is actually coming from Exodus 20 and 12. And so it says that the touch point is about respect. And you'll see what that has to do with commandment. But actually, what I can tell you is that in Exodus 20 is where we first hear the 10 Commandments read. So here's the touch point, and it says, all of the 10 commandments deal with our priorities of honor or respect. The first and second commandments tell us to honor God above everything else. The third commandment commands us to honor his name. The fourth, to honor the Sabbath. And the fifth, to honor parents. The last 5 commandments tell us to honor others in our community. Not to murder them, that's 6. Not to defile them with adultery, 7. Not to steal from them, 8. Not to lie to them or against them, 9. And not to want what they have, 10. Proper respect for God and others. That's the heartbeat of the 10 commandments. So that's why I chose to use, excuse me, the letter C as commandment from December, but also let C move us into a lesson of respect. And what I want you to do, is, again, if you're just watching the broadcast, is I want you to just put some words with the letter not words with letter C, I'm sorry. What kinds of commandments, what kind of rules or personal rules do you have that you will use to keep it together? So even as you think about those 10 commandments, obviously I hope you won't go out and kill anybody, because thou shalt not take a life. But what are your personal rules? How do you really feel about the truth? How do you really feel about being honest? And one of the things I want you to do in this time is be honest with yourself. What are you feeling and going through? This is not an easy situation. It is a new situation. And it's interesting. Like one of my great nieces, Manu, she had posted on her Instagram. She's in college, and she had posted. I ain't putting her business out there. I love her, and I think it's a great thing to share this. She said, it's many mornings I wake up and I feel like dropping out. And so the reason I said I don't mind sharing that, because what I answered to her is that that's a common feeling, among people who are in college. You feel like, hey, you know what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. I can't take it. I want to drop out. And I told her, I said, you know what? And I actually don't have an answer for you, because I think it's a whole nother. This is a whole nother ball of wax. I did drop out of college. I would wake up and something, but the funny thing is I didn't want to drop out. I just messed up in my grades to where that was my best option. But what I said to her is, this is new territory that I am unfamiliar with. So I'm going to wait and talk to you about how you feel and what you're going to do. Because with the COVID situation, she's talking about dropping out of college, but guess what? She's in college virtually. And the funny thing for me is, I think about it, I ended up finishing college online, but not virtual, not seeing one another. It was just through the emails at American American Intercontinental University. So I finished online, but it wasn't the same type of stress. So I want to learn that from her, of how she's handling it. So that's what I'm going to do to keep it together. I'm going to respect her opinion as a young person living through this. And I think that might be a good message for us older people, is to recognize that we don't know exactly what they're going through, because we know what we're going through. But guess what? We're going through something that we're comparing to how it used to be. So therefore, what we're going through is a lot different, because our younger people don't have that same point of reference. They've got their younger lives, but they don't have something that they did 20 years ago that really set in. And, it's like, think about somebody, Manu is 18. So 10 years ago when she was 8, that's not something that whatever she's done from 8 to 18 is not so important in her life that it won't evolve, versus somebody who's 28. And you look back at 8 and over 20 years, something has really set in, because you've had some changes in your life. Your career has moved forward from school to where you work, your career. And so that takes some of the things that have set in as principles that you use that now become steadfast in what you do. So, so that's the type of thing that you have to think about in terms of what our young people are going through today, even as we're going through it as well. So make sure that you respect what they're going through and listen. Try to find out and see what the transferable analogy is, and it's not a, hey, you know what, oh, this is what you're going through. But hey, there were times where we had a blackout. And, we had a blackout for a whole 10 hours and we couldn't do it. We had to stay in the house. That's really not that similar. All right. But you know where I'm coming from. All right. Good. So that's the C is commandment. The next C, I want to swing over to the C of character. Character is important, okay? And character, according to the VIA survey, is at the core of the VIA Institute. It's a psychometrically validated personality test that measures an individual's character strengths. When you discover your greatest strengths, you can use them to face life's challenges, work toward goals, and feel more fulfilled through both personally and professionally. I got this from dealing with my military. What the military has is one of the things they teach are called military resiliency skills, and character strengths is one of the skills. You've heard me talk about it as focus. Finding ourselves creates unlimited success. Focus on you and let others come into focus. Talking about putting you first so that you can help others based on knowing what your strengths are. And see, that's where this is a continuation, because I've always said focusing on yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you selfish. You can't take care of anyone until you take care of yourself. Well, here's one of the ways that you can do that, by focusing on your character strengths. What are your character strengths? But here's something I wanted to give you. It's similar to my literary lesson. I want to give you a little bit more insight, because when you first see it, because the first time I saw these words, I thought VIA, and then I was wondering, what does it stand for? Well, it turns out that VIA once stood for Values in Action Inventory. The Values in Action Inventory. But the thing is now, and that was the original psychological assessment. They've updated that to where VIA stands for VIA. You know how we say you're going somewhere? VIA. Because now they realize that this is the organization's name today, which describes the way that their institute connects research and practice. So see, so it's not VIA, VIA, Values in Action Survey. It's the VIA. Here's how we're doing it. We're doing it via research and practice, and that's beautiful. And so what we're going to do here these are some of the VIA character strengths based on the work of Dr. Christopher Peterson. Bravery, fairness, gratitude, humor, judgment, self-control, and self-regulation. And I purposely left off the ones that begin with C, because I want to use them in the final C word that we use. But at this point, again, even on the broadcast, what I want you to do is drop into the thread some of your character strengths. What are your VIA character strengths? What are you doing to help yourself get along so that you can help others get along as well? Because remember, that's what it is. Once I understand what my strength is, now I can help others, because I will administer it appropriately and hopefully positively, so that it can be a help and a blessing to someone else. And the reason I put these in the feed, because sometimes we don't recognize these as character strengths. But I think bravery, one of the things about bravery, I always say that one of the bravest things you can do is wake up. I'm sorry. At least I heard myself. One of the bravest things you can do is go to sleep. Once you lay your head down and go to sleep, that's brave, because you have no guarantee that you will be waking up tomorrow. So give yourself credit for how brave you are. And fairness is a great character strength. A lot of times fairness, we'll hear people more talk about that's not what's not fair versus talking about what is fair. But you know what? There's just such a fine line between what's fair and unfair, because what is also in play? Context. context of of the full situation. What someone else going through that you don't know about, that it impacts how they make that decision, and vice versa. Okay, thank you. Hey, what's up, Lawrence? Man, good to see you. That was a powerful statement. Now I don't. Oh, and you know what? This is a tape delay as I'm broadcasting, but I'm pretty sure you're talking about bravery, about being brave enough to go to sleep, lay your head down and go to sleep. So thank you, and thank you for putting that in there. And if it was something else, go on and put that in there too, so we can all know what powerful statements are, because that again is what we have to be sharing as we go. Thank you. Good, I caught it. And see, there's communication and connection that we have to have, and especially these days when you look at text messages where they don't give you the full sentence. But I want you to be careful of that, because you do need full thoughts and context to really communicate. So a lot of times we make a half sentence and expect somebody to understand, then we get upset when they don't. So be conscious of that. We'll continue to do it, but be conscious of how it has the effect it has. Again, so fairness depends on context. What have you been through? And by the way, Lawrence, if you like, I want you to put and especially and thank you for your for not answering the call is what I say. Thank you for your service as the common line we use, not line, but appreciation of our military members. But I like to add, thank you for answering the call, because I think there's a high calling on your life as a military service member and family member, because what America does is ask you to turn your emotions on and off at the drop of an order, and you do. And that's something that you have to stop and pat yourself on the back, because not everybody can do it. That's a high calling on your life, because no emotion is wrong. You should be afraid. You should be excited. You should be angry. All of these emotions are legitimate. And so what we have to do is recognize and honor someone's emotion, and then move forward in terms of how we're going to resolve that situation between the two of us. So, Lawrence, if you've got any of your character strengths that you want to drop into the thread, please do. All right. And that, because that's what this point is. And again, those of you on the broadcast, go on and drop your character strengths in. We need to see as many as possible. Don't you know that sometimes someone else seeing your character strength, it makes them say, oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize that was a character strength. I have that same one. And now what do we just do? We just bless them. And so it can move forward. So fairness, gratitude is a character strength. Sometimes we don't think about that, but being thankful is a character strength, because you got to do what it takes to be thankful. You have to know what you have and what you're sharing. Leadership is a great character strength. Yes. And now, but here's where our English language becomes important, because the key here, not just Lawrence, but anybody, is now, this is where I'm saying we have to extend our vocabulary, because the key is what type of leadership, because, there's domineering, micromanaging leadership. There's participatory leadership, where you work with your staff. So that's the key. Yeah, it is a character strength for everybody. P.S. by the way, but what type of leader are you? And that's the type of question when we look at the overall question on this broadcast. What will you do to keep it together? So that's the key: is add an adjective to your leadership. Positive leadership, wonderful leadership, compassionate leadership. That's what you want to do to take that leadership up even another notch. And so that's the beauty of it all. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you put it there, Lawrence, too, because by the way, it shouldn't be taken for granted. Oh, wait, he or she is in the military. They should have leadership skills. No, you can't take it for granted. People are in the military. Okay. And so we have to make sure that we're dealing with one another as people and having the compassion to understand what they may be going through and how they may be administering their gift and their blessing. Humor is a character strength. Again, people might not think humor. Yes, it's a character strength. In fact, you would want to have humor incorporated into your leadership style, because you have to help break up that stress level in your group, and then let's say in your troops or your battalion in the military, you have to break up that stress. We've got a lot of stress to break up right now in companies as we get people who are ready to come on virtual and those who are not, people who are frustrated because they've lost their job based on it now being virtual. As people come back together, someone's wearing the mask, someone's conscious of wearing the mask, and someone is laissez-faire about it. See, all of these things can cause some stress within our groups and our environment, but we have to have humor to break that ice, to break that stress, and help people get back together. Okay, I encourage people to tap into their talents. Thank you. And again, there's the caveat on that leadership, and that's what you want to be conscious of. Have a strength, and then be conscious of it. A lot of people, which is why I have a poem called "Sometimes I Wish I Were Lucky," because I don't believe in luck. I believe that we're good, and so what we have to do is focus on that goodness and then talk about it, so that we can accept that. Yeah, I accept my goodness, and I'm willing to talk about it. So and that is a wonderful word. Encourage people to tap in their talents. It's like you like I say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So you can't force someone to tap into their talent, but you can encourage them to. And how do you do it? Again, there's the leadership, but let's talk about my character strengths. What are yours? And then maybe when someone sees what you dropped into the thread as a character strength, again, it will help them tap into theirs, because they hadn't thought about how judgment, my final example, how judgment could be a character strength. How can judgment's negative. We don't want to judge people. That's where we tend to hear the word judgment. But judgment is a character strength in that it's connected to your intuition, and it helps you identify a situation. And because that situation, see, it's just like when people say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Okay, well, that's actually judgmental, because what you're doing is you're looking at a situation that happened in the past, and now you're superimposing it on what's happening in the present. And so, well, this happened to me before. Now I see in advance that this person is that's judgmental. But what it does, here's how we look at it positively, is that recognizing that even though I have said, well, Lawrence scammed me before, so now someone who looks like him is here and they did this, I put the wall up. But then I say, but you know what? I know that's not the person who scammed me. I just know why my instincts went up, and I'm going to give him and her and myself a chance to walk around the wall. And that's where judgment is actually a strength, because I know I'm judging what the situation is instead of judging the person. Great. And then leading by example is huge. It's the difference between practicing what you preach and preaching what you practice. In my speaking business, I would not give advice that I would not take. And that, even though I'm saying that in regard to my speaking business, I want you to remember that in regard to being a leader, being a supervisor, being a parent, being a battle buddy, being a friend. When people need, and this also goes back to, by the way, to when we were talking about the character strength of what? Which one was I talking about? Where it's not selfish, but focusing on you. Oh, in general, the character strength, and that is when you give someone advice, I need you to take care of yourself first. That's where I was trying to go. That's why I would remind you, take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually, so that leading by example would mean if I'm taking care of myself physically, I have the bandwidth to tell you to take care of yourself. If I'm slouching over, I can't tell you to get out there and work your butt off and exercise and get your health better. If I haven't taken care of myself mentally, I can't give you good advice about what you may need to do in terms of a career move or a personal move that you want to make, and you're asking for my advice, because I would not be leading by example. It's just like if I smoke cigarettes, I can't tell you to quit because it's bad for your health. And then lastly, if I'm not taking care of myself spiritually, I can't lead you by example. I can't tell you to have the faith. In fact, the funny thing is, and I'm not beating y'all up on this one, but don't we sometimes say, well, you know what? I just got so much on my plate. I don't think I can take another thing. And then an hour later, we want to encourage a friend by saying, well, you know, God wouldn't give you more than you could handle. See, that's spiritual well-being. Do you believe that you have too much on your plate, that you can't handle another thing? Or is your faith say, God wouldn't give me more than I can handle? See, my faith says God wouldn't give me more than I can handle. So when I get something extra on my plate, then I say, wow, I thought 12 was the maximum, because I'm thinking 12, right? 12 disciples, 12 months, 12 days of Christmas, right? So when I have 12 things on my plate and here comes thing number 13, I'm saying, man, I thought I was maxed out at 12. I can do 13. I'm a bad dude. Mindset. Spirituality and mindset, all right? Taking care of yourself. But because I know that when thing number 13 comes for me based on my spirituality, thing number 7 and number 8 may be removed. Why? Because 7's the number for completion, 8 for new beginnings. What do you use to make yourself come up with positivity? That's what I do. So that's one of the ways I use it. What can you do to do it? And again, lead by example. Now I can preach what I practice instead of practicing what I preach. Here's what I do to get myself out of that funk versus here's what you need to do. Here's what I do to get myself out of that funk. And now if we can talk about how you might be able to do it. That's what Lawrence has got to be doing when he's leading by example, when he's encouraging people to tap into their talents. He has to have an analogy that shows a transferable skill that says, hey, I see how you're doing this, and here's what you could be doing differently if you'd like to. Because there's also times where your spirituality and your faith is your patience, and that the way you're doing it, maybe you need to keep doing that way. Maybe it's just going to take a little bit more time. Maybe you're just a week away from that outburst, from that testimony. So it's something that's why you've got to really know who you are and make the difference. All right. So those are some of the things that we have to look at in terms of judgment. And character strengths. And so now it takes me to the final C. And this one is where I really am going to want you to jump in, because the final C is the word creative. Creative. And this is where I decided, I said, you know what? I want to get you to drop in some character strengths that begin with the letter C. So drop those in the thread right now. Lawrence, it's me and you. So what you got that begins with the letter C, that's a character strength? And I can, and I've got some, because I held them back from the VIA survey. And I say I'll hold those back, and as people drop theirs in, then I'll drop some of those in as well. So what you got, Lawrence, beginning with the letter C in terms of character strengths? Hey, there you go. Confidence. Confidence. Great. Okay. And it's just me and you. If you want to drop another one, go on. But again, hey, anybody, if you're on the broadcast, watching the feed, do that too. Because what they had, and I thought I made a copy of it, and I didn't. But in terms of the VIA survey, they have capacity, caution, citizenship, creativity, and curiosity are just some of the examples. And think about it. Capacity. If you've got confidence, you have to. There's capacity and confidence. But let me separate the two first. Let me first deal with capacity, because this turned me on when I first saw this word as I was preparing the message. Capacity is something that you need to have when you're dealing with stress. And what I teach in the stress mastery, which I learned, I've been certified in stress mastery education from Dr. Heidi Hanna. And what she has taught us is that negative stress is when demand exceeds capacity. In other words, you have a capacity. There's something you can handle, a certain amount of stuff. You've got a capacity. But when the demand comes and it overbarrels that capacity, that's where you could have the negative stress. Takes us back to that example about the 12, about the plate, the full plate, and God wouldn't give you more than handle. I've got a capacity. I can do 12. And so and here comes thing number 13. So do I give up, or as I like to say, do I move from a plate to a platter? because I've got more room now that I've grown. And see, that's where now the confidence can come in, because I've got 12 things on my plate. Here comes things number 13. I've got the confidence, instead of shirking my responsibility from thing number 13, I find a way to add it and include it, because I know what my blessing is and I know where I want to go. And that's the confidence you have to have. How are you going to, so you're going to wrap up everything that Lawrence said. How can you be an effective leader if you don't have confidence? We can't take that for granted. Oh man. And oh, beautiful. A good leader has to be able to console their followers, which also is compassion. You know, you have to have that confidence, and you have to be able to console people. And guess what? You have to be confident enough to console, because consoling someone could be misread. Going back to fairness, it could be misread as us deciding that we are, playing favorites. Someone else will misread it. So, there's just a lot of stuff, y'all. And that's why I say it's about really getting things into context, getting the full story, being aware that you people are aware of your actions. And that also, by the way, is what a good leader recognizes. They know that they're on the stage. They know they are being watched. So therefore, what are you doing that is going to impact the decision that you're going to have to make next week, next month, next year? And what is our overall topic? What will you do to keep it together? And so, you've got to be thinking about that. I was at a Yellow Ribbon, which is when I'm working with my military. And this past weekend, and we were out at a bar, and we were laughing and joking. And one of the leadership from the Army, he said, "Look, I got to get out of here because I'm planning on running for Senate in 10 years, and I don't need to have you guys having my history smeared." And he was joking, but we got a good laugh about it, and just cracked up and recognized that, what are you doing to set up your next move? And then Lawrence gives us another one, having compassion, that I mentioned. Yeah, you got to put all of that stuff together. And compassion, for me, in terms of, in fact, Lawrence, I'm sure we met based on some type of session where he was either going to be deployed or coming back from deployment. And the thing I like to say to my service members and family members, especially when they come back, but I'll warn them before they go, but especially when they come back, one of the challenges of reintegration, getting back together, is the question, whose turn is it to be compassionate? Whose turn is it to be compassionate? What I'm saying there is, you've got a service member who said, "Hey, look, I just went through this our being physically separated, and I had to live in this country, and I had to, be mindful of this. You need to understand what I just did for this country and us." And then the person who stayed home may say, "Yeah, but you know what? While you were gone, I had to hold the fort down. I had to do this and that with the kids, if there are kids involved. I had to do this with the parents, if there are parents involved." So the challenge is, and what I remind them is, neither one had it better, or neither one had it worse. You have to be compassionate and understand that you had a physical separation for X amount of months or years or whatever the time frame that was not in your original plan of coming together. So no one had it worse. So the compassion is to understand that each of you had to deal with something. And this is important for relationships. You see how everything comes together? This is important for relationships, to recognize that your context of where you're coming from is different from your partner's. And so you have to get that full story before you can make a decision. Easy to say, hard to do. And I don't say that I've made that right decision every single time, but I try to be aware of it as much as possible. And I definitely try to impart it upon our younger generation, or people who may not have considered that. So compassion is huge, Lawrence. Thank you. Thank you. Citizenship is another one. Caution is another one. It's important to be cautious. Think about your surroundings. Don't be stupid. And citizenship is important because it's talking about how you work with people. Creativity is a character strength, and I'm glad these were already on the list, by the way. through the VIA survey, and because creativity is definitely one of my favorites. You may have seen one of my new tipping my toe into the using a video on my feed, and that is what I'm doing to try to upgrade my business, and is a better use of video and technology. And lastly, curiosity is another one of the strengths that they list, and it is important to be curious because you need to, again, just as you are conscious of your surrounding, you need to know what's going on. Oops, did I leave creative off of there? Oh, I didn't even have creativity on there. Yes, I did. Okay, so it's important to be cautious as well. Think about what you're doing. Take your time. Take your time. Don't worry about doing it according to what somebody else is doing. Everybody evolves at a different pace. So what's your timeline? What will you do to keep it together? And what's your pace? How do you set your goal? And so that's something that we have to be conscious of. And let that walk us into one of the C's that I think is important that I want to close with. And that is one of the things that I mentioned in last week's broadcast is that we have to stop looking at this as the end of the COVID year, because everybody says, oh man, I can't wait to get out of this 2020 and this COVID. Hey, COVID is not on the man-made calendar to end on December 31st at 11:59. Happy New Year. COVID's no longer here. No, this is the first of the COVID years. This is not the last of the COVID years. That is not a pessimistic outlook. That is a fact. This is the first of the COVID years. So we've got to put all these things that we talked about today, we got to put them together and keep ourselves calm. There's another C. But, we've got to make sure that we've got the type of, what commandments, what things are we doing to keep ourselves together? What rules are we following? What are your 10 commandments, your 5 commandments? What rules are you following to keep it together? Because you've seen what you had to do to make the adjustments this year. Which ones of those things will you continue to do as the requirement for the adjustment goes up, not down? It goes up. So then, what about your character strengths? Which strengths are you going to be used? So even as Lawrence put in the leadership and talked about the compassion and to be able to console, how will those? So now what you have to do, Lawrence, is ask yourself, how will those help me? How will those help me going forward? And so now once you decide how they help you, now you can be conscious of how you bless. And you're blessing yourself and you're blessing others. Oh, wait, you know what? Being an effective leader, being one that encourages people to find their talents, that's going to be a skill that's going to help me, because as people come back into the work environment, they may be a little shaky about what's going on and feel like, oh man, is the job just bringing me back so that they can find a reason to get rid of me based on technology? There's a lot of insecurity that's going to be going on. So how can you now, okay, no, I'm going to console them and compassionately let them know that they are still an important member in our team, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so I say blah, 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 but because you have to put it into your words. So think about how these things are going to be helpful to you in this first of the COVID years. And then how will your creativity, my creativity, I know how it's going to help, because it's going to help me deliver, find different, transferable skills and analogies to move forward and help somebody else. And see, so that's answering the questions. How will you stay positive? What will you do based on the character strengths that you already possess? How can you make it better for everybody else? Because you will. So recognize this is the first of the COVID years. We are creating the testimony according to God's will. That's why I tell people, we're not living in the present right now. We're living in the future. Because think about it. Right now, what are we saying? Well, the vaccine is here and it's coming out. How will it be rolled out? That's the future. What will be the side effects? That's the future. How long is it going to work on different types of people? That's the future. So we're living that right now. We're living in the future, y'all. And so we're getting the testimony. This is the new storm. Let's be positive about it. How can you stay positive about this, Sporty? Because I enjoy my faithful belief in God's will. We learn it when we say the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Boom, we learn it on earth as is in heaven. We just learn it in rhythm, but that's a strong word. Thy kingdom come, but not thy kingdom come, but thy will be done. What do you want, God? So it's really important to get yourself together, pace yourself, and ask for help. Find somebody like Lawrence who is compassionate, that you can talk about, who can find ways to console you and help you get it. He didn't say feel sorry. He said console. Consoling someone does not mean feeling sorry for them. Consoling is just like when you see somebody says, that they're going through a challenging situation because of the loss of a loved one, and you say, oh, well, you know what, I'm praying for you, and it's going to be okay. Hang in there, do the best you can. That's consoling them. That doesn't mean you're feeling sorry for them. So again, see, the more we understand about strengths and emotions, because all emotions, again, are legitimate, we will respect them and honor them. And then that helps us become even more, valuable as people connected to one another, because you want to be connected to one another. So you think about what you will do to stay positive, and what will you do in the next COVID years. This is Sporty King. And the final C is that I'll see you sooner, because that's again my creativity. I don't say see you later. I'll catch you later. I say see you sooner, or see you or catch you sooner, because the sooner I can catch you, the better. And we don't know when that time is going to be, so let's not make it later. Let's make it sooner, and as soon as possible. Thank you, Lawrence. Awesome show. I think that's a good way to put a good tag to put on it too. So be sure that you catch this and always any of my broadcasts here on Facebook. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, Friday is Gift Friday, Monday is the Monday Morning Moment. But you can also go and find them on YouTube, and I hope you will subscribe to my YouTube station, because then you get them chronologically. You get them in order, versus Facebook. You have to scroll down past a whole lot of other posts to get to the next one. So definitely please go to YouTube and subscribe, even if you choose not to look at them over there. And I hope you'll also subscribe to my monthly fun letter called The Golden Brick Road. I should have put a click in there for that. So I'll put one in there after I end this broadcast. But anything you can do to keep yourself positive is what I'm happy to help you push out and share with other people. Thanks again for joining me, Lawrence Live, and anybody on the broadcast. Go on and put some of those things in there. We need you to do what you do. God bless you, and take care. GLUE. God's love undoes everything. Ciao.